Well, hello and welcome. This is World Series News. My name is Jason Olborn, and thank you for joining me for this US Election Day coverage out of Australia, where it is already Wednesday, November 6th. No, it's not a time machine. It's just the way that the world works. We are already into the future, if you will, and we're all here waiting and watching for the counting to begin in what will be the most important US election for anyone who knows what is actually going on in the world. Thank you. And before I get started, please, if you can, comment. Comments are great, really appreciate them. But if you can, share it with your friends, because we are going to scorch the earth, if you will, in the way that we do here at World Series News. Now, something that I didn't announce, and I'm delighted to let you know, you can see in the bottom corner there on the screen, Preserving Liberty. That is the brand new book from Josh Bernstein, one of my regular guests on my show on TNT Radio. Contacted Josh this morning, who has told me that he had rejected many requests to be a pundit on some much bigger shows than mine. And he said to me, look, of course, Jason, I'll come on your show. And I'm delighted to introduce him in just a moment, and we'll get into it. There's a lot to cover and a lot of analysis, and you'll really appreciate Josh's perspective. He knows a lot more than we do here out of Oz. And it's those little intricacies that will let us know what's really going on. So Josh Bernstein is a TV talk show host, a news anchor, and political commentator. Josh has been a guest on over 4,000 radio shows over the last 11 years and has been called a political savant by the late American radio legend Barry Farber. Now, Josh's website is simply JBU, or the Josh Bernstein I think it's unlimited, uncensored, and we'll get in that in a minute. jbushow.com. Apologies, Josh. I can't believe that one skipped my mind, but welcome. Here he is. Thanks very much for joining me. Great to see you again.
It's great to be on the program with you. If you guys are already on the 6th, don't you already know who won?
This is it, right? This is it. We have a feeling we know who won. And so now what we're going to do is go back in retrospect as if it's a Tarantino movie and work out exactly how it's going to play out. Maybe that was the wrong name to mention, but one of those movies where you get the ending first and then you go back and find out how it all unraveled. So Josh, look, it's really, really great to see you. How are you holding up over there in the western side of the United States?
Well, I'm doing okay. I'm more concerned with you in Australia and TNT, and I do really hope that you guys find some more financial backing and you come back in 2025 with a vengeance. I really want to see you guys come back. I really enjoyed my time being a guest on TNT and so many of the great shows, yours of course, and Dean and all the rest of them, and Mike Ryan and Melinda. I mean, it's just been phenomenal, And you guys are, the trailblazers out there in Australia, and we certainly don't want you to become a penal colony again, if you know what I mean.
Look, absolutely. Thank you very much for saying it, Josh. Just quickly, in that time, of course, we got to speak quite often, but some of the people that I got to interview on that show, quite incredible. Victor Davis Hanson was one of my guests on the show. Liz Crokin, Mary Flynn O'Neill, Del Bigtree, Dr. Peter McCullough. There was hundreds of doctors that had been on the show in that period of time. Politicians from all around the world, obviously from the United States, from Australia, from the Netherlands, from the UK. Quite extraordinary, just the people that we got to speak to. So you're dead right. One little bit of news there is that TNT has kind of partially re-emerged as on a new website simply called thesource.today. And if you have the TNT app on your phone, you click on that, you will be able to get coverage. So what's happened is they've started a small reboot coming out of the UK a few hours, which is for Australian evenings. Check your times there if you want to. But about 5 or 6 of the presenters have come back already, donating their time to get this one up and running. So I'm really, really thrilled. Which is wonderful news. Now, Daryl said there's no sound, but sound has returned. Thanks, Daryl, for that. Not sure what was going on there. If anything, we've all been predicting what's going on with the censorship, but I'm sure it's not that. We are out there. Now, there's a lot to cover off on the show today, Josh. So I thought what we might do is just work through the headlines one by one, and I'll get your take on what's going on. And then I'm going to show the endorsements from surprising people. There's some counting results already coming through in pre-poll counts, and then I'm going to show you the odds from Sportsbet to give you the latest odds of what's going on there. So there are many people who are anticipating, what's coming And the big fear is that there's two things: whether there's going to be some form of shenanigans behind the scenes, and of course there already is, and whether or not it is too big to rig, because one wonders, if Trump got 84 million votes last time, can he get to 90, 95, 100? And is it possible that that can justify even more votes on the other side from the candidate who only became a candidate only a handful of months ago? So here's our first story, Josh, I wanted to cover. This is from your neck of the woods, I would say. Arizona update. Republicans led in early voting by 218,311. The Republican election day voting turnout is 2-1 over the Democrats. That's where I wanted to go first, Josh. You would be all over this, about this idea of the 2-1 turnout. What's going on?
Yeah, clearly, we've done things a lot different this time around, thank goodness. You know, most of the time in our elections, Democrats come out and they early vote and they gain a huge lead. And then election day comes and we have to whittle away that lead, and we have to put ourselves in position to just eke out a victory with early election day voting turnout. And we've changed the model. And we've changed the model mainly because we were forced to change the model. The days of going out and voting on election day only are over until we get back in power and we're able to change the way that we do our elections. I'm not a fan of early voting. I'm not a fan of mail-in voting. Our U.S. Constitution does not say that Americans have the right to vote by mail. Okay? There is nothing in the Constitution that says that. And so we want to get rid of this mail-in voting and absentee voting and all of these other early day voting and things like that. So Republicans have kind of stepped up. President Trump came out and said, look, let's do things different this time. Let's vote early. You've got amazing organizations out there like TP Action, Turning Point Action, and of course, Scott Pressler's organization, Early Vote Action. These are tremendous organizations that have really done a fantastic job at getting people to the polls and getting them to the polls early. And so because of that, we are in a 218,000 vote lead coming into election day. Now, if we're winning 2-1 on election day, then that would mean that Arizona should completely be won by President Trump by later on this evening. I mean, you know, we're talking Republican +9, Republican +10 or 11 even, possibly in the end. So we'll see what happens. So we're looking very good here, of course. But remember, President Trump has to win Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. Now, obviously, we saw what happened in 2020. They stole Arizona, they stole Georgia, and he did win North Carolina. But now we're looking at the numbers in Georgia, we're looking at the numbers in North Carolina, and it is looking like victory for those three states. So what does that mean? Well, it means that President Trump obviously has to win all the other states too, right? Florida, he's blown it away. He's got to win Iowa. He's got to win Ohio. He's got to win Missouri. He's got to win all these other states. But here's the thing. If he wins those three states, all he has to do is pick off one of the Rust Belts. He could win all those three and Pennsylvania, and he's president. He could win all those three and pick up Wisconsin, and he's president. He can pick up all those three and pick up Michigan, and he's president. If he wins all three, he's definitely president. But it's even better than that. In the early voting and the early states that are going to report, you want to keep an eye on New Hampshire and Virginia in particular. Because if he wins Virginia, it's over. It's just as simple as that. Because if he's winning in a more blue state like Virginia, that means he's definitely winning in a more Rust Belt state in the Midwest, which are more conservative than the East Coast, more liberal types of states, okay? And so keep an eye on Virginia, but also keep an eye on Georgia because, again, Pennsylvania too. These states have all switched how they count votes since 2020, meaning what? You're not going to have these 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 day, your waiting periods, if you will, to count votes. At least I don't think so, because a lot of the laws have changed in these states to report much earlier. So you could have Georgia reporting tonight by 6 o'clock Arizona time, 8 o'clock Eastern, and you could potentially have a winner already declared at that point. Pennsylvania about 30 minutes after that. So let's just hope and pray that it is too big to rig and that people are going out. It looks like it's very strong for early voting. Thank God. The big cities are down considerably. The rural areas and suburban areas are up considerably. So, the math is looking good. But again, I want to caution the fact that we have to win election day and win it big in order to put President Trump back in the White House.
Well said. Well, I'm going to hold back on the overall odds, but as you were speaking there with naming those states, I've gone into Sportsbet and taken a snapshot of the state betting. Let's put that up on the screen for you now. It's a little bit small, but I'll read it out to you. Arizona has got Sportsbet's got the Republicans $1.22 to the Democrats $4. Josh, that would support what you've just said. Georgia Republicans $1.43, Democrats $2.72. Iowa, where we saw that ridiculous one-off poll, still Republicans $1.17, Democrats $4.90. Michigan, Democrats $1.42, Republicans $2.74. So they're predicting Michigan will go to the Democrats. Nevada, Republicans $1.88, very close. Democrats $1.92, and North Carolina $1.39 to $2.82 to the Democrats. Out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 states, 5 of them the bookmakers are saying will go to the Republicans. Given those odds, if it goes the way the bookmakers say, you'd have to say that would put Trump in the White House.
Well, he would have to have Wisconsin and he'd have to have Pennsylvania because he can't lose North Carolina. And what was the other state up on there?
Let's have a look again.
There was Nevada. Yeah, I think he's going to win Nevada. I think that the numbers are clearly in his favor in Nevada. And then as far as Michigan, the interesting thing about Michigan is that a lot of the Muslim communities in Michigan, including the mayor of Hampshire, the only majority Muslim community in the United States, they have endorsed President Trump. They've also kind of made a pact within themselves in the Muslim communities. And that's not just Michigan, that's other states as well, which would also go into Virginia, right? The McLean area of Virginia has a heavy Muslim population. Of course, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota is the largest Somalian population in the entire world outside of the country of Somalia. And those folks in Minnesota, they came out, and the Muslim leaders of the Somali leaders in Minnesota came out and endorsed President Trump just a day or two ago. So there could be a pact in which they're going to support President Trump or they're going to vote for Jill Stein. And if they vote for Jill Stein, that's going to alleviate a lot of votes away from Harris. So Michigan is a tough one to figure out and call. If the Muslims are as powerful of a voting bloc and they decide to deny her, because look, there's a lot of Muslims out there that for whatever reason, they won't vote for a woman for any circumstances whatsoever. And that's just part of their culture. And so in this case, that would work in President Trump's favor. But if Jill Stein is getting big numbers in Minnesota and in Michigan, it could be a very interesting night for President Trump.
How about that? Well, Josh, let's have a look at this here. This is the odds from Pennsylvania. Republicans $1.67 ahead of the Democrats, $2.15. But Wisconsin predicting Democrats $1.65 to Republicans $2.17. So I find that interesting, just the same. That we're seeing a majority, though 6 of 8, favouring Trump at this stage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, it's all really Pennsylvania, to be honest. I've heard a lot of people talking about they don't think that she has a shot in Wisconsin. Now, a lot of times, whatever one state does in the Rust Belt, the other states follow too. So keep that in mind as well. So if we're winning Pennsylvania, and it certainly looks as though we have a real good shot at doing that, if you look at Pennsylvania and you look at some of these counties, like for instance, Cambria County is the one in which the voting machines went down or something. And so the RNC jumped in immediately and they filed a lawsuit and they won to keep voting open until I think like 10 o'clock at night or something like that. And Cambria in 2020 was Republican 2.9, Republican plus 2.9. Cambria now in 2024 is Republican plus 16.1. Okay. And so those people are still waiting online. They have extended time to continue to vote. and they're voting in an area of Pennsylvania that is Republican plus 16.1. The other one was, I think it was, what was the other one? There was another county, I can't remember the name of it offhand, but there was another one. Wait, I'll tell you exactly which one it was, because I remember now. It was in Indiana, I think. Yeah, Indiana. So Indiana, the lines are just a mile long, basically. And Indiana was Republican plus 17.8 in 2020. It is now Republican plus 26.3. And those people are still waiting in line to go out there and vote. So look, if these people are all voting and they're doing well, and the independents are breaking, 4-1, 3-1, 5-1, then he's going to win, is my guess. And if he wins Pennsylvania, he blocks her path, basically, at that point.
That is fascinating. Well, the odds there, as we've just shown you, supporting a victory for Donald Trump out of Pennsylvania. Look, I've just put the headlines up there about what happened in Cambria County in Pennsylvania, where they're saying stay in line, that the voting hours have been extended to 10 p.m., an extra 4 hours on voting day. And there it is, the election day chaos hits key swing state county. The voting machines down in Apache County, Arizona. Josh, it's very hard for people not to think that there are, clandestine or shenanigans going on there if these machines go down. I mean, you've had 4 years to get them right, but of course they go down on election day. What is the backup, if you will? Or maybe a better question is, Josh, how did you vote in your county? Did you vote on a machine, on a ballot that was put through a machine, or on paper? How does it work?
Well, I filled out an actual ballot, a paper ballot, and I filled in, the circles. And then I photocopied the front and back of it. I used a black ink ballpoint pen so that it doesn't smudge or anything like that. So we don't have Sharpie Gate 2.0 or anything like that. And then once I was done with the ballot, I then went to a county recorder's office, basically near me. And I waited in line. And then, you seal the envelope, you sign it, which is your signature. You put, your information on it. And then there's a big box, and you just slide it into the box, and it goes into the thing. So for me, it's something I've never done before, ever. I've always voted on election day. But after what they pulled in Maricopa County, in which over 60% of the machines went down on election day and stopped all those people from being able to cast their votes so that they could steal the election for KKK Hobbs over Kari Lake, I've changed my tactics. And now we're voting early. And assuming President Trump wins this election, this should be the model moving forward for the Republican Party, where we contact these outside vendors, so to speak, these TP Actions and Charlie Kirks and Scott Presslers and things like that. And we get out there early. And again, that's only if we still have early voting. Our goal is to get back in power, have President Trump win the House, win the Senate, and then do a 50-state mandatory voter ID. There's over 140 countries around the entire world that mandate voter ID, except for America. It's so stupid. It's ridiculous. And some of those are third world countries that you would not think of as, first world countries with freedom and things like that. And even they have voter ID. So that's going to be the one thing we're going to have to push. We're going to have a 50-state mandated voter ID. That'd be number one. Number two, I'd like to see, I don't want to see election season anymore. Okay. We need to get back to election day, maybe election 3 or 4 days at a maximum, but we don't need months and months and months of being able to vote where there can be fraudulent activity, because the longer you have to vote, the more likely your vote might not count, or there could be fraud involved in the process. So there's a lot of things we have to change, but unfortunately we have to play their game in order to get back into power. And playing their game right now, it shows, at least at this point, that we're not only playing their game, but we're beating them at their own game. And I think that's important.
Yeah, very true. We here in Australia have a 2-week pre-poll period, and what we learnt from that, if you're not of the mainstream, well-resourced parties, it means 2 weeks where you need to be stretched very thin to be able to man said pre-poll. So you need a whole bunch of volunteers who are willing to spend their entire day handing out how to vote cards at those particular polling booths. And of course, the smaller the party, the harder and the thinner you're stretched, and therefore it means that you need to be involved in the process quite actively. So there is always a need for consolidation. Now, I'm going off on a quick tangent here, but Donald Trump did say in his interview with Joe Rogan that he once toyed with the idea of joining the Reform Party, a third party, but quickly changed his mind and said it is a two-party system, and that is the way that it works, and therefore the only way to go forward was to become the head of the Republican Party. And I think that's a very good lesson for all of us here in Australia. As much as we despise the two main parties, perhaps the alternate strategy would be is to consolidate the third parties and then move to take over one of the two main parties, if you will. It's just an alternate political strategy, a way of thinking. But let's keep moving on. Now, this is a headline that's popped up again today. This is breaking: O'Keefe Media Group undercover. A Philadelphia City Commissioner's office tells non-citizens that they can vote if they are Philly residents. And of course, James O'Keefe has provided video. I also want to show you this, everyone. This is really important. This is off USA.gov. Who can and cannot vote? Well, who cannot vote? There you go. Non-citizens, including permanent legal residents, cannot vote in federal, state, and most local elections. And it also says who can vote, and basically you need to be a US citizen, a dual citizen, so someone who meets their state's residency requirements. I find that interesting, but a non-citizen, it is illegal to vote. So that's what this article is all about. This is something that's really bothered me for a long time, Josh. How is it that you can import illegal aliens and somehow register them to vote when clearly on the federal government's own website, a non-citizen can't vote? How do they get away with it?
You know what? Because no one, first off, because we have an illegitimate Department of Injustice that doesn't care and wants to stay in power any way they can. So they're not going to charge anybody with election fraud. But whoever that person is in Philadelphia, I will be sure to have their name, their address, their information, everything. And I will be sending it to my contacts to President Trump, and whoever his new attorney general will be prosecuting that individual and anyone else that commits voter fraud. We are going to go after these people with a vengeance. We are going to throw them in jail, and we're going to make sure that no more cheating happens in elections. Now, at this point right now, you know, God willing, hopefully the turnout is not going to be there in the urban cities like Philadelphia and elsewhere, and you know, Wayne County and Detroit and Fulton County in Georgia, and you know, those types of areas. And we'll be able to win, and win big, because once we win, we're coming after these people. These people need to understand their days are numbered once we win. And I'm going to be going on a retribution revenge tour like you've never seen in your life. But at this point right now, you know, we just have to continue to pray, and we have to continue to fight and make sure that we're voting, and we make it too big to rig.
Yeah, well said. Very, very important. That you just need to be on your game all the time. But this focus on this awareness is incredibly important. But it is a good reminder what happened 4 years. There was a lot of nuance what happened 4 years ago to today. Let me put up some more headlines for you here. This is another one off the Gateway Pundit. Pollster's stunning admission. A top pollster dumps on his own data and says Trump actually up bigger than his state polls show. The head pollster at Rasmussen recently made a stunning admission on Real America's Voice. Stinchfield. Mark Mitchell believes his polls showing Trump with a small lead are wrong. He actually believes President Trump is outperforming most state polls conducted by nearly every polling organisation, including his own. Mitchell goes on to explain where the shift in the cycle's electorate happened and why it makes pollsters' jobs so difficult. I find that really interesting, but I want to continue down that thread for a moment. Wayne Allen Root. We are living in a combination of Twilight Zone and Bizarro world. Here are the three factors that will determine today's election winner, and mainstream media refuses to mention any of them. So what I've done, Josh, is that I've just cut some of the copy from the article. I'm just going to read it. Being for Trump is like a secret society with a secret handshake that only the members know. The last two elections prove this. He says, it's not my opinion, it's fact. There are huge numbers of Trump voters who the mainstream media and pollsters cannot identify. That's why the polls are always wrong when it comes to Trump. Not just wrong, but way off. This factor was not only proven true in 2016 and 20 with Trump, when Trump outperformed the polls by a mile, but also in 1980 when polls reported Reagan tied or slightly behind Carter for many months before Reagan won a last-minute landslide victory, somewhat 42 states to 8 or something incredible. In 1980, the pollsters all apologized. Yet, even though it happened with Reagan in 1980 and again with Trump in 16 and 20, here we are again, and no one is mentioning it in the mainstream media. He says it's not just Twilight Zone or Groundhog Day. It's clear these polls that keep showing the race is tied or razor close do not include millions of undercover Trump voters who whisper I love Trump but would never tell a pollster. Trump is leading or tied in polls for the first time in his career. So based on history, it's not even a tight race. History proves whenever Trump is down by 10, he's tied or winning. But this time he's tied or already winning by 1 to 3. That translates to a Trump blowout win, which will certainly with the electoral vote. And yet no one in the media wants to talk about it. Now, here's the thing. I'm just going to take that off so you can see our faces. He says, Wayne Root says, the other thing is the Gallup poll is always getting it right. And the reason he says the Gallup doesn't poll candidates Trump v. Kamala, they poll political party identification. Throughout modern history, that number correlates exactly with the final vote. If the Democrats lead by 3 in party ID, the Democrat presidential candidate always wins by exactly 3. If Democrats lead by 1, the Democrat candidate wins by exactly 1, but might lose the electoral vote. Yes, it is a science and it always matches. Now, here he goes. He says this year, for the first time in modern history, Republicans not only lead in voter identification, they lead by a landslide. The last Gallup poll before the election showed the Republicans up +7, meaning the GOP now has a 7-point edge among voters. How about that? And you know what that means? All the polls are wrong. They're all based on an electorate that no longer exists. They're all based on a Democrat majority of voters. The current demographic makeup of polls should be GOP +7, and based on that number, Trump is ahead by a mile. The polls have it all wrong again. Now, Wayne doesn't stop there. Of course, he mentions the shenanigans, the voting manipulation, if you will. So he's optimistic, but he's cautiously optimistic. And that's the purpose of what we're doing today. Because really what we should have called this show is simply, is it too big to rig? And I'm asking you now, presented with all the evidence that we've provided for you thus far and with Josh's expert analysis, what do you think at home? Maybe you want to be daring enough to throw a comment up there and say Trump by whatever. I find that very, very interesting.
First and foremost, I will say that all polling companies are usually towards the left. That's not just in America, that's in Australia, that's in New Zealand, that's in the UK, that's in Africa, that's in Spain, I mean, Portugal, it doesn't matter where it is. Anywhere around the world, they're always leaning towards the left. And the reason is because they want to make sure that the American perception or the perception wherever it is around the world is close enough so that if they decide that they want to steal, because I'm going to say what it is, they want to steal an election, they can say, well, look, the polls even showed you that it was close and our candidate won by a whisker. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's number one. Number two, exit polling is always skewed to the left. They do this on purpose. They wait, and then the exit polling comes out and they completely lie. And they say, Republicans, go home. It's over. You can't win. Blah, 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 blah. This is the exit polling. They did it in 2004 with George W. Bush's race, trying to disenfranchise Republicans from continuing to vote in places like Ohio, in which he needed, and he won that election. They did it in 2016, saying that Hillary Clinton was way out ahead and for everyone to go home. Okay, they did it obviously with Biden, and they're going to do it with Trump. Okay, it's just part of what they do because they're scumbags, and that's how they win. They cheat. Okay, that's number one. But remember this, President Trump in particular has always outpolled the polls by about 5 percentage points. Okay. He did it in 2016 by 5 percentage points. He did it in 2020 by 5 percentage points. And then, of course, they stole it because they had a plandemic to hide behind. Let's call it what it was. Okay. But in 2024, there is no plandemic, number one. Number two, Republicans are coming out in droves where it counts, and they're matching them or beating them in early voting. And number three, Republicans usually come out more on election day than Democrats do. So if you add all that together, mathematically speaking, not taking any type of fraudulent activity out of the equation, if that wasn't there, then I would be telling you landslide 330 plus electoral votes, maybe even more. Okay. But because of the fraud factor, that could erase 3 to 4 percentage points of Trump's 5 points. Okay. If it's caught. Now, the thing is that right now, the RNC and Lara Trump, they have filed over 190 lawsuits, including 89 of them in the swing states alone. And they have won a big majority of those lawsuits. So they're being very proactive. They're not being reactive. They're not buying, water breaks, in Georgia. They're not buying certain things. And when Democrats are trying to push Republican pollsters out and watchers, they're filing lawsuits. Lawsuits are coming in right away, and they're correcting the things that they're trying to do to steal the election. So putting all that into perspective, if the polls show President Trump winning by 1, 1.5, 2, technically you should be able to add 5 points to that in all of them, which would show that he's winning comfortably. But again, after what happened in 2020, I don't make any more predictions until we have another Republican victory in the presidency. Then I'll start making predictions after that. I am cautiously optimistic, but that doesn't mean that these left-wing idiots out there aren't going to try to do whatever. That's number one. And number two, we still have these just absolutely asinine, dumb, single women, one-issue voters that only care about murdering their unborn children as opposed to anything else. And so I'm hopeful that inflation, immigration, pricing, economy, all of those things will drown out these one-issue voters, these single-issue women voters, and President Trump will win. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing. Now, polls close in every state. Now, I want you to understand, for the people, from 2020 to 2024, there's been multiple changes on how votes are counted in a lot of the important states. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and I think Nevada, those 4 states have changed how they count their votes. What does that mean? That means that we should not have another 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days of counting votes trying to figure out who won. What does this mean? It means that based on early voting numbers, now remember, in these elections, the early votes are going to be tabulated first. Now, in past elections, early votes were always tabulated first, and it always showed the Democrats winning and winning big. And then election day votes come in, and it eats up their victory and hopefully enough to win, right? Well, now we're either winning in early voting or at least even in these states. Now, if we then win, of course, on election day, at least 2-1 or 3-1, then we should be in good position, right? Here's the thing. Right now, you have 7 p.m. Eastern time. It is right now, if I could see my thing, it's 3:15 where I'm at right now, okay? So that means on the East Coast, it's 5:15. So that means at 7 p.m. Eastern time or 5 o'clock my time, which is only in about 2 hours from now, right? Georgia closes, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vermont, and Virginia. Now, if Georgia comes in and it's solidly red and they call it for Trump, keep an eye on Virginia. Virginia was not supposed to be a swing state, but the latest we're seeing in Virginia is that it was neck and neck, or possibly Trump could win. And if you take that extra 5% that they're not counting on and you add it into a place like Virginia, if he wins Virginia, it's over. It's over. Simple as that. Why? Because they're counting on Virginia as their numbers to get to 270. We would be blocking them immediately. The other one is 30 minutes after that, North Carolina, Ohio, and West Virginia. And then at 6 p.m. my time, you've got Alabama, Connecticut, D.C., Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire. Keep an eye on New Hampshire. New Jersey, my original state, and then Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Tennessee. So what am I saying right now? It is possible, and I'm prayerful of this, that we could have the determined winner, hopefully President Trump, by 12 midnight on the East Coast, if not earlier, because of the fact that these states are now reporting early. And keep an eye on New Jersey too, because if New Jersey is close or goes to Trump, it's over. Okay? So you got to keep that in mind. He wasn't supposed to win Nevada, and it looks like at this point he's probably going to win Nevada. So again, you know, you put all these things into perspective. I also heard that he's 8,000 votes away in New Mexico. Okay?
Wow.
8,000 votes away. If people come out on election day in New Mexico and they vote 2 to 3 to 1, he could win New Mexico. Now they don't have a map. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said President Trump has more avenues to get past 270 than they have to even get to 270.
Absolutely fascinating. Look, here's another story that popped up in my emails this morning. Have a look at this headline. Shocking early election results are in and mass panic ensues. Now, these are always sensationalist, but here's the story behind the story. And it refers specifically here to in Dixville Notch, New Hampshire, tabulating the vote is a long-standing election custom. The midnight vote on election day in the unincorporated community of New Hampshire has yielded the first results of the first in the nation primary since 1960. Donald Trump received 3 ballots and Kamala Harris 3 votes this morning. Despite the fact it doesn't appear to be statistically significant, lefties are already interpreting it negatively for election day. Why? Because in 2016, Dixville Notch went 4-2 for Hillary, and in 2020 it went 5-0 for Biden. And in comparison, it's 3-all. And of course, it doesn't really mean anything, but it's an interesting one. New Hampshire, as you said, a bit of a lightning rod there for the sentiment of the day. The point being that of those 5 Biden voters, 1 who obviously abstained or wasn't there, and 2 of them have switched to Trump. That is very, very telling at this stage, Josh. Now, let's continue, because I want to go down the pathway of some endorsements that you might not be aware of. Have a look at this. The BLM leader announces he's voting for Donald Trump, warns that a Kamala Harris victory would be a disaster for this country. I can't believe what I'm seeing, Josh. That is just next level, right?
It is. Who is this? Who is this person?
This is Mark Fisher, co-founder of the Rhode Island
chapter, huh?
How about that?
He's come to his senses.
How about it? Now, he's not the only black man, of course, that switched sides. What about this? An Iraqi priest prays for Trump's victory, calls on God to send a strong leader to protect persecuted Christians and bring peace to the Middle East. I find that riveting that we're seeing these examples.
I mean, look, I think she stepped in it big time when she shunned the Al Smith dinner. You don't shun the Al Smith dinner. This is an organization that raises money for, you know, lots of different causes, but of course, Christian-based causes. And she decided to phone it in. Now, the last person that skipped that was, I believe, Walter Mondale, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And we saw what happened to him. He got obliterated. But not only did she skip it, worse off, she did some type of stupid video with Gretchen Hitler, as I like to call her, the governor of Michigan. And they were pretending to do give the wafer with a Dorito. So that was really kind of like shocking. Number one, it was anti-Christian. Number two, but also they did this weird skit with, if you remember Saturday Night Live, Mary Kathleen Olahan, I think was the name of the character. I can't remember the name of the woman who played her, but she like puts her fingers and like puts them underneath her armpits and smells them or something. Some really weird kind of anti-Christian thing. And then the worst part is she said when the guy screamed out, Jesus is Lord or Jesus is King, what happened then? She goes, I think you're at the wrong rally. Those 3 strikes, including the Al Smith dinner, I would assume has hurt her with Christians in many of these important swing states.
I find it absolutely atrocious that a Christian nation, and you can want to lead it and say that you're going to govern for all and then shun the Christian community. And we've also seen what she said about Christmas in the past is just absolutely repulsive. Let's continue with some of these other endorsements that we're seeing. Hindu priests and Christian children in India gather to pray for Trump's return to office. So this again supporting what you're saying there, and people from multiple beliefs, persuasions, religions there combining to pray for a Trump victory. And here's another one for you. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire endorses Donald Trump for president. This is massive, right?
Yeah, let me get to the Indian one first. So obviously Premier Modi, I think his name, right? The president of India, Modi, he's extremely close with President Trump. Now, if you go back in your memory bank, there was a time where towards the end of President Trump's last term, he went to India and it was just pandemonium. The streets, everything was Trump, 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 all over the place. So they're very, very close. They also understand the relationship between the United States and India is so vitally important, especially because we've got to block China. And of course, you have India next to Pakistan with nuclear weapons. So there's a lot of danger there as well. So yes, these Indian priests and children and religious leaders and all that are going out of their way to vote for peace and to vote for prosperity for the world with a President Trump victory. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire's endorsement at this late hour is absolutely huge. And here's the reasons why. Number one, because if he wins New Hampshire, he's got a really good shot at winning the entire thing. And we're going to find out soon enough when the New Hampshire votes close. But not Rand Paul, he's also great, but Ron Paul, the father, is now going to hopefully work with Elon Musk to help kind of like eliminate the size of the federal government here in the United States of America. I think the Libertarian Party is excited about that. I think they understand that a lot of things are going to be audited. A lot of different venues and agencies of the U.S. government are going to be audited and cut, and things like that. So I think they get it. They understand that voting for the Libertarian Party or candidate is throwing your vote away. You might as well step up and realize that this new Republican coalition, if you will, is very different from the establishment coalition in Washington. This is a broader based coalition of common sense populism, which is extremely important. You've got people like RFK Jr., Make America Healthy Again. We're the only ones talking about America's health. Usually that's a Democrat issue, right? Don't they talk about all the health care and we're going to give you free health care and Medicare for all and all this other garbage? They're the ones that talk health. But you know what? We've been talking health, and we've been talking important health, the type of health that matters. What's in your food supply, what's in your water. Let's get rid of fluoride. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's start, investigating these different forever chemicals in our food supply. Let's start getting more like other countries in Europe and elsewhere that don't have all these preservatives, don't have bioengineered products and things like that in our food supply. So Make America Healthy Again. You can't discredit that. That's at least 3 to 4 percentage points for Trump. Tulsi Gabbard, another excellent voice for the Republican Party at this point. Of course, Elon Musk is tremendous. And even Vivek has done a tremendous job as well. So we do have a nice, coalition of people that are going to surround President Trump to really bring the type of, not just political change as far as like, telling us what we want to hear, but people that actually have gone in and done this. For instance, Twitter to X. Elon Musk went in and fired 90% of the people, and now he's one of the #1 platforms out there, and everything's running smoothly with 90% less people. Imagine if he does that to the federal government in the Department of Government Excess, I think is what they're calling it, Doge or whatever it may be. So again, there's a lot of things to look forward to, but we got to get over the hurdle, and that hurdle is today and making sure that we get a decisive victory.
Now, it's interesting you bring up New Hampshire because here's the odds again on sports bet. Democrats $1.17, Republicans way out at $4.90. But if the indications were there and say you were to pull off what would look like an incredible upset, that would, of course, show you that the trajectory is well off and pointing in one direction and one direction only. And this would start to parallel the Reagan-Carter
Well,
and then the Reagan-Mondale results of 80 and 84, Josh.
don't forget, New Hampshire's motto is what? Do you know it?
Tell me. No.
Live free or die.
There you
Okay.
go.
That's on their license plates. So that is a very libertarian, independent, I don't want to use the word anarchistic, but just very anti-government in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people in New Hampshire that are very different than people in Maine, very different than people that are bright blue in Vermont, right next door to them, very different than bright blue Massachusetts. So they sit in this little island of, conservatism, but more like a libertarian type of conservatism. So we'll see if that New Hampshire Libertarian Party endorsement for President Trump actually has some weight behind it.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And it might only be a couple of percent, but small state, who knows? Now, possibly the biggest endorsement of the last few days was from Joe Rogan endorsing Donald Trump for president. And I've picked this headline from, of all places, The Guardian newspaper. They don't come more left than The Guardian. And there they are publishing the story that Joe Rogan has endorsed Trump for president. And of course, Joe Rogan interviewed Trump himself, vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance, and Elon Musk in the last few days. Josh, did you happen to see any or all of those?
I saw all of Trump's. I saw about 3/4 of J.D. Vance's, which was phenomenal. And I haven't had a chance yet to see Elon's, but I'm sure that I will be able to see some of that. Look, I'm really happy that Joe Rogan did this. He's the #1 person as far as podcasting in the country. Probably even the world, right? I would assume he's probably #1 in the entire world. And this is a big endorsement because it will hopefully push a lot of men out to the polls today, and in particular in these swing states, which again is vitally, vitally important. So I'm very happy that he did it. I wish he would have done it in the interview with Trump because it would have had even more impact, but better late than never.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, more and more people watching those interviews every day. Now, I wanted to bring these up at the end of the show, and I'm just going to go over them for you again. These are the odds currently, or at least updated. So Pennsylvania, $1.67 Republicans, $2.15 Democrats. Wisconsin, $1.65 Democrats, $2.17 Republicans. We don't know which way that's going to go. But here, looking at the overalls, this is the current, just a couple of minutes ago. Donald Trump, $1.55 ahead of Kamala Harris, $2.48. That is a significant difference, and that is what Sports
What
Bet
state is
Australia,
that last one?
that is overall.
Overall. Okay.
Yeah, overall. So Trump 155, Harris 248. That's just a snapshot of what's just been taken there. And these are the state odds here again. So Arizona, $1.22 to the Republicans, Democrats $4. Georgia, Republicans $1.43, Democrats $2.72. Iowa, Republicans $1.17, Democrats $4.90. Democrats $1.42 in Michigan ahead of Republicans $2.74. Nevada has the Republicans slightly ahead of $1.88 to $1.92. And North Carolina $1.39, Republicans, Democrats $2.82.
So North Carolina flipped back to Republicans?
Yes, North Carolina is for the Republicans.
So like I said, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, right? And then
Yes.
he wins the rest of the states that he won in 2020. He only needs to pick up what? One Rust Belt. That's it. So all he needs is one. And it looks like it'd probably be Pennsylvania. If he picks up Pennsylvania, he wins Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. Pretty sure he's president at that point, president-elect. Because like I said, there are more paths for President Trump, clearly, than they are for her. She has to pull off a trifecta in the Midwest, which, my God, that would be horrific for us. But I don't think that's going to happen. I really, truly don't. Like I said, I'm not making predictions because of, you got to understand, we've lived in perpetual stress and depression and fear for 4 years because of what they did to our psyche, what they did to our country, what they did to our elections. For 4 years, we've been living in, perpetual depression and stress. So we're very kind of gun shy to go out there and pump our chests until we know what's going on. That is one reason why I wrote Preserving Liberty, because preserving liberty cuts through the noise. Preserving liberty changes how we vote in a way that will guarantee Republicans win future elections much more than Democrats. As a matter of fact, if my Balance the Electorate Act became law, Democrats would probably never win another election ever again, because what it does is it takes away the winner takes all mentality and apportion for voting, and it gives it back to counties. So in other words, Maine and Nebraska do things different than the rest of the other 48 states. They don't do winner take all, where the popular vote wins and the winner takes all for that state, and boom, that's it. That person wins the state. Those states apportion it by different sections or counties. What my book talks about is, imagine if we had 50 Nebraskas, where every single state went by counties rather than a winner-take-all model. And I explain in the book how it would work. What it would do, affectionately, it would allow more independents to not throw their vote away and actually vote for independent candidates and still be able to win elections. But what it would do ultimately is it would destroy the power structures in the big blue urban epicenters. And that is my 100% goal. This book is Project 2025 on steroids if it was an 8-foot tall Bigfoot, okay? That's what this book is. This is the most limited government-based solutions book out there, period, end of story. So folks, it's gotten great reviews, incredible reviews. Go to Amazon right now, amazon.au, right, for Australia. Go there, find Preserving Liberty book and order a copy of it, because you can take this blueprint and you can use it in Australia. You can use it in Tasmania. You can use it in New Zealand. You can use it in the UK. You can use it all over the place, because these are radically, and I use that word, radically liberty-based solutions. No government, we the people taking back our country. So get a copy of Preserving Liberty, please.
Well said. Well said. I'm just going to put it on the screen for people right now. I'll just load that up for you, and just so you can see what we're talking about. Here it is on the screen right now, just loading up very quickly.
And it's been endorsed by 2 New York Times bestsellers, Roger Stone and Alan Dershowitz, and a congressman wrote the foreword to it so that he can take the book, read through it, and introduce new legislation based upon it. So.
Oh, it's fantastic, Josh. It's a very, very big deal. Now, the last thing I want to mention here, if some of the pundits are right, and I've heard them during the week, and some very accurate pollsters are predicting more of a landslide victory to Donald Trump. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that if he were to win 320 to 220 and win by 100, here is what I would rate as the best bet of the day for those that are thinking down that way, who are ultimately confident. Look at this bet. If you want to give an Electoral College handicap of 99.5 start to Kamala Harris, that would mean you need a 320 to 220 result. You would get $1.04 if you backed Harris with 99.5 head start. But if Trump were to defeat Kamala Harris by that result, you would collect $9 to your dollar. It's an 8-to-1 bet there in a 2-horse race. So that's for the ultimate confident people. That'd be something very, very interesting to do. Well, it remains to be seen. And if anything is like 2020, well, we've all jumped the gun and we've gone a bit crazy, but it's a very, very different result. We are not in the COVID pandemic era. We haven't got people fretting. We don't have to see what's going on there. And we have had 4 years of probably the worst presidency we've ever seen, and most incompetent in Joe Biden, and somebody who's coming out there promising change, but saying that she's going to protect the status quo, promising to govern for everyone, but then being anti-Christian in a Christian nation, and playing down a pathway of relying on destruction and decline as a way forward. And it seems that only the very, very low information, rusted on Democratic supporters are buying this anymore. When you see endorsements from libertarians, you see endorsements from Iraqi priests, Hindu priests, Christian priests, etc. This is a very, very different election, and one that we can all sit here and quietly take the deep breaths and just leave it to the man upstairs, if you will, and to your own, shoe rubber. That's it. And hopefully in a few hours' time, we'll start to get some very, very positive results. Josh Bernstein,
yeah,
go
I was
ahead.
going to say one real quick thing. It says that Kamala would need 700,000 votes out of Philadelphia to win Pennsylvania. Biden received 600,000. Hillary earned 560,000. So,
whichever way you look at it,
it looks like Trump is going to win Pennsylvania. But again, fingers crossed. I mean, just praying. We ought to do a prayer right now before we get off the air. To be quite honest,
if you want to, I would love you to lead in a prayer for all of us.
Okay, ready,
Josh? Thank you, please.
All right, dear God, please, please, please let President Trump win this election. We need to cleanse our country of this corruption and power and communism and communism, or whatever you want to call it. We need a decisive victory tonight. We do not want this to drag on. Please, God, let's revitalize America. Let's lead America so that we can lead the rest of the world into peace and prosperity in the future and beyond. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Josh. That was beautiful. And before we all go, I'll put it on for ceremonial purposes. There is enough of the mainstream that have been so biased one way or another. I'm proud to wear my Make America Great hat in front of our audience and therefore the world, and say to all of us here watching from Australia that what happens in America affects all of us, particularly in Australia, the 51st state, if you will, of our country. We will go to the polls about May of next year and expect big things. And I'm looking forward to an announcement from our very own Senator Gerard Rennick in the coming days of his party, the People First, being officially recognised and registered. And I'm wondering how many of you who are watching will get involved and want to join with Senator Rennick and make a real splash as we try and consolidate the third party support and see what we can do to make a very big difference. Josh Bernstein, thanks again for your time. Please get a copy there of Preserving Liberty. You might want to put it in your basket as a Christmas gift and say that you saw Josh here on World Series News. And Josh, should we get back on the source or however it works in the future, you'll be the first phone call I make, and more power to you. And hopefully we can regroup in a few hours' time, one way or another, over the phone and see where we are. But thanks again for your
thank you. God bless you. God bless the people of Australia as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you all on the next show. And please, if you can, like, comment and share to get this out there so people can see this really great analysis coming from Australia on the most historical election day in our lifetime. See you all on the next show. Thank you.